What is going on, everybody? It is the one and only Q from Retro Q Gaming, coming at you live from a little bit of a lockdown state, a lockdown scenario, a lockdown situation, whatever it is you want to call it. We'll just say lockdown, lockdown, lockdown a few more times. It's no Kanye West up in here, there's no Love Lockdown, but, well, we only listen to good music up in here, that's probably why. So here we are with our 51st episode of our Quack experimental podcast. Now this one is a very special episode to me personally, mainly because this is the 1 year anniversary of, well, give or take a couple of days because of, you know, how the day changes and the date and whatnot every year. But yeah, we're looking at the first after the 1 year anniversary. So this one is a little bit special to me in that way. I'm very happy that everyone has been here for, if you've watched one, if you've watched 51, if you've watched the special in between, or whatever it is. If you just watch your own favorite segments that come up at the thanks to the timestamps, or if you watch the whole thing, if you comment, if you don't, whatever it is, I appreciate every single bit of it, every little piece. You know, I feel a little bit disrespectful actually talking with the sunglasses on. I tend to not talk with the sunglasses on in real life. Depends on who I'm talking to, of course. If it's someone I respect and someone I have equal footing with, not too many of them, I'll take the glasses off and I'll talk to them. But yeah, I just want to reiterate the point one more time, just getting it across, that it does mean the world to me. That even though I just do this for a hobby and it's just me sitting here shooting the shit with the internet, and that's it. That's it. Some people enjoy it. Some people enjoy it for the wrong reasons or whatever, but I appreciate it all. That's very important to me. So, without further ado, let's get back to our 51st episode of our Quack experimental podcast, starting with some potential good news. We've got Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Remastered. Now, this isn't 100% official just yet, although we all did know it was coming. Even a few years ago, after they originally announced that Modern Warfare Remastered was coming as an additional bonus with, was it Infinite Warfare? Yeah, but ever since that one, we knew that this was going to be a pattern down the line anyway too. So first off, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 has shown up in two different places. Number one, it's shown up on a South Korean ratings board. And number two, it's been data mined from the latest Call of Duty Warzone update. Now, it makes kind of sense that it would be in the Call of Duty Warzone update, simply because even though it's buried in there, when you look at all the Call of Duty and the Activision stuff and all, they do in-game, cross-game advertising for the next one in the series or whatever's coming up next and all that too. Now, interestingly enough, so far at least anyway, it's listed as campaign only, which kind of makes sense to me. Now, if I remember correctly, Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered from a few years ago, not the reimagining that came out last year, but the remaster that was packaged a few years ago, I believe that had multiplayer as well, but I can't imagine it did too well. I was surprised that they even included multiplayer with it at the time. But if they were even going to put multiplayer in it at all, again, it shocked me, so it's no surprise that it probably didn't do as well, especially considering the new hotness Call of Duty was out that year. So if they were to remove it and just list this as a campaign only, this makes perfect sense to me. Now, it's almost certainly, as expected, a pre-order bonus for whatever Call of Duty is going to be this year here in 2020. Assuming no delays, of course, but it's Call of Duty. They'll release it even if it's a broken mess and then patch it down the line. But if you have been paying attention to rumors and everything going around, it's rumored that the new Call of Duty for this year will be a new Black Ops game, but not a new Black Ops game not like Black Ops 5 or anything like that. No. It's tipped to be, well, basically like what Modern Warfare was last year. When you look at the Modern Warfare in 2019, it was a soft reboot or a series reimagining of the first game. This one, the 2020 version, is supposedly, at least anyway, something similar to that, a reboot or reimagining or whatever of the Black Ops series with Black Ops 1. So we'll see how that goes. I'm sure they found massive success with the 2019 reimagining of Modern Warfare. So it doesn't surprise me that they would want to redo it with this. But I will say that does feel exceptionally lazy, if you will. I mean, they've tried a couple of other different things. They've tried Advanced Warfare, they've tried Infinite Warfare, they've tried Ghosts. I realize that these games are vastly inferior in quality to the likes of Modern Warfare and Black Ops 1. I never played Black Ops 2, and Black Ops 3 was kind of questionable. But, I mean, really, you're just going to remake and reimagine it? I realize, when you think about it, whatever they do in these reimagined versions, they could tweak ever so slightly to not be Black Ops. But people will buy it from the Black Ops recognition. People will buy it from the Modern Warfare recognition. For example, if you had all the stuff in Modern Warfare from last year, change the character names so they weren't, who do they have? Soap and Price and I think Gaz and Ghost, were they in there? I can't remember the exact characters, it's been so long. But if they were to tweak it just to do that and change the name, it probably wouldn't sell as well. But people will buy the reimagined version of a game that they know and love to be great. So, yeah, marketing is a little bit of a bitch in that, anyway. But, speaking of stuff that's a little bit of a bitch, we have stock shortages of upcoming games. Now, this isn't 100% confirmed, but it is possibly expect this to happen. Of course, naturally, with all the shipping restrictions, less people working, things like that and all as well, when it comes to the coronavirus outbreak and the stuff that's been going on worldwide, several game delays, not even delays, several game developers have cited that there might be stock shortages and delayed in replenishing stock of certain games, certain physical editions of games over the next couple of weeks or potentially months. Now, so far, only two big ones at the moment have actually talked about anything like this. Namely, it was Capcom and Resident Evil 3 Remake, which is out at the end of this coming week. They've cited that there will potentially be physical edition shortages in the US and in Europe. So, if you've got one of them, now, of course, this doesn't affect digital sales, but, you know, if you've got one of them or you plan on picking it up, do it quickly. And also, they're not the only ones, because Square Enix have said the same thing with Final Fantasy VII Remake in the same regions, both in the US and the European region. Now, on top of all of that, okay, remember that we don't know how big Resident Evil 3 Remake is going to be. It will most likely be in the 20-something gigabytes. But Final Fantasy VII Remake, that's a bit of a problem for some people, at least in situations like this. With stuff like the PSN and its already diabolically bad speeds being crippled even more to alleviate stress from all the extra people staying at home and whatnot, downloading a 100 gigabyte on that might be a bit of a problem to some of the people out there. Luckily, preloads usually go live fairly early, so you might be able to get that done. But on top of all of that, what's especially curious and interesting to me is just a few days ago, Final Fantasy VII Remake Deluxe Editions, physical Deluxe Editions, have already been spotted in the wild. And to add further curiosity to the whole thing out there, I received a shipping email on the 26th, which was a few days ago, stating that my copy of Final Fantasy VII Remake Soldier First Class Edition has shipped. So that could potentially mean I get this game days, if not weeks early. Maybe they're shipping it so early in order for me to have it at launch, incorporating delays and expecting delays in shipping and whatnot. But I will say, there could just be a little bit of a slight mix-up and all, but I will say this, the last time I got an early shipping confirmation notification directly from the Square Enix store, which is where I bought the Final Fantasy VII Remake Soldier First Class Edition, I ended up getting Kingdom Hearts 3 before launch. So, this is potential. This could be good. This could be good. But speaking of things that could be good and flipping it completely on its head and going right down the opposite end, we're going to look at microtransactions, which is something completely bad. Now, it's the usual bullshit as you'd expect, but it's possibly even a little bit worse. This time, we're looking at Sega and the Yakuza series. Now, the reason for that is that Yakuza 7 removed an existing feature that was present in all prior games and is now attempting to charge for it. Not only that, but it gets worse. First off, if you're wondering what this feature is and all as well, it's New Game Plus, which is in many, many different games. So basically, to give you the general idea of what New Game Plus is, if you don't already know, it allows you to take everything, usually your inventory, your level, your stats, blah, 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 yada, 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 after you finish the game and restart the game with all of that. If you want to do maybe a 100% completion run, if you want to max everything out, or sometimes what they do is they have special bonus level stuff or bonus stuff that's only unlockable in New Game Plus, and the difficulty is cranked up, so you need to be higher leveled and have better equipment and gear and stuff like that. So previously this has been in all the main Yakuza games for free, just as a basic feature, but now that it's removed, they're trying to charge, and that's right, you're going to hear this correctly, and we're going to talk about why it is a little bit of a big deal, but they're trying to charge 60 cents for this upgrade. Now, I automatically hear people say, "Oh, Q, it's 60 cents. You can't afford 60 cents. What are you, poor? Get out of here." I use Nvidia graphics cards. I'm not poor. But anyway, on top of all of that, they're looking to increase the price down the line to $9. And when I say down the line, that's within the next couple of weeks / months. I believe the time they quoted was around May, early May. But here's the big problem. This is a perfect example of the slippery slope, where you give them an inch and they will take a mile, and they will always try to screw you as much as possible. Taking out something as small as New Game Plus, existing features in a game, in a series that has been going on since the PlayStation 2. Now, I don't know if the PS2 games had it, but stuff like Yakuza Kiwami, Kiwami 2, 0, 3, 4, 5, blah, 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 they all had it. But then curiously, Yakuza 7 doesn't. And they're trying to charge you for it. Charge you extra for it. So, this is what I've always said is going to be a problem. People would say, "Oh, you know, it's just cosmetics, blah, blah, blah." But no. It starts with something like this. It starts with a little piece of content. I can't even say it starts, because this is what they've done a long, long time ago. They take out one or two little small upgrades, one or two little small pieces. You know, maybe they take out 0.5% of the game. Then 1% of the game. Then you've got Assassin's Creed 2, which takes out 2 whole chapters in the center of the game. And you see my point. This is why I always credit Assassin's Creed 2 and Ubisoft with the huge microtransaction / DLC / content removal to sell you later. Most people would give it to the likes of Oblivion and, well, in some cases, pretty much EA. Anything from EA. Mass Effect, not Mass Effect, Dragon Age 1 comes to mind. That was a really, really obnoxious and controversial one. But yeah, I always give it to Assassin's Creed 2. And if you support this, and arguably if you don't even speak out about it, if you just ignore it and whatnot, they're still kind of winning, because they're not getting shamed and ridiculed for ripping you off. So luckily I have no interest in Yakuza 7. It is the turn-based RPG version. But maybe down the line, because we all know it is coming to PC, but maybe down the line after I've already finished Yakuza 0, I've already finished Yakuza Kiwami, maybe after I finish Yakuza Kiwami 2, then when the remasters of 3, 4, and 5 get ported to PC, and we already know 6 is coming to PC, it was talked about in a Sega investors call. Granted, it was a long, long time ago, but still, we are still... Where was I going with that? Oh yes, we're still outraged at Yakuza 7, and who knows, maybe down the line I will get around to it, but that is for another day. In the meantime though, stay mad at them, because otherwise they get away with all sorts of shit. But let's flip it the right way back up, and we're going to talk about the future, we're going to talk innovations, we're talking technology, we're talking going forward, which is always a good thing, because we're talking ray tracing. Now, I'm a big fan of ray tracing, even if I don't have the hardware for it yet, but the reason for it is, well, better quality, and not only that, but it's new technology, and it's pushing forward into the future. The real super abridged Cliff Note version of this is a technology that has been around for 20 plus years, but has been so performance heavy that it could only be done in massive like supercomputer workloads, to the point where it would be done for one frame for a single promotional shot. But now, through the advent of stuff like the tensor cores and new engines and whatnot that support it natively, well, now we have the ability to do this live, on the fly, in real time, in gaming, at 60 70, 80, whatever it is, 100 times per second, which is insane, and I can't wait for that. I absolutely love that. So more and more games are getting official ray tracing support, which is good, which is promising, and which is, well, what was essentially promised to us. But it seems that more and more developers are opting in for ray tracing, even if it's something proprietary like Nvidia's RTX, or if it's just going to use standard DXR, or if it's engine based ray tracing like in, say, it's not Unreal Engine. They may have it, but I don't remember. CryEngine was the one I wanted to quote specifically, because that's engine-based ray tracing. Now, more interestingly, as even though more and more official games and official studios, developers, publishers are supporting this, some of them are launching their games with DXR in there, or at least with RTX and ray tracing in there, and some of them are adding it post-launch. Some of them have promised it, some of them have not. But on top of all of that, and more interestingly, more and more games are getting ray traced fan mods put in there as well. Now, there's plenty of games out there that have ray tracing added to them unofficially through mods. Some of them are ray tracing, some of them are path tracing, some of them are varying different qualities based on, well, the amount of different rays it shoots per second, or per frame even. But on top of all of that, these are great examples. Resident Evil 2 Remake is the latest case in point we want to do here. Resident Evil 2 Remake does not officially support ray tracing from Capcom, but it has been modded in thanks to fans, and it makes the entire game, from what I've seen at least so far anyway, look so much better. It looks a lot more gloomier, a lot spookier, a lot more tense, which is exactly the look and aesthetic they're going for in there. So because of the more accurate lighting and shadows, obviously in that game everything is dim and drab. I was going to say dim and drab, but I ended up coming out with drim. It would have been drim and dab. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, the game is supposed to be gloomy, spooky, drab, and dim. Fucking hell, I did it again. But yes, that is the point anyway. So with the more accurate lighting and shadows, it looks better in that way. Now, this goes on to why I'm excited for ray tracing in general. Now, not just everything we've seen over the last year, ever since the likes of Metro Exodus, which is probably the best looking game I've seen at the moment when turned up max with ray tracing on, but there's a couple of other games in there too that also look really, really good. Now, of course, with more games being announced and more games having it patched in, officially and unofficially, I've always said that at this point, with what we're seeing with graphics cards and graphics technology, ray tracing eventually will become a standard feature. Like ambient occlusion, like shadow quality, like reflection quality, like lighting, etc., etc. Maybe I can't even say something like subsurface scattering, because that's not in a massive amount of games. But even stuff like this, ambient occlusion, shadows, reflections, lighting, etc., etc., like they have eventually become over time standard features, which were not always standard features. Ray tracing is going to become a standard feature as GPUs increase in power and efficiency, both in just regular power and efficiency as well as ray tracing power and efficiency. 5 years from now, when people are upgrading from their shitty GTX 970s or their 1660s or that absolutely awful, laughable card, well, I don't know why anyone in their right mind would buy it in current year, a GTX 1080 Founders Edition. My God, who would use something like that? But a couple of years from now, when everyone has upgraded to any type of available RTX card at the time, at 3080, 3080 Ti, 3070, 3060, 4080 Ti, 5080 Ti, something along those lines, or even potentially what AMD can do in the meantime, in, of course, those couple of years. 5 years from now, we won't have articles every day about ray tracing. You know why? Because no one will give it a second thought, because it will be a standard feature where even an entry-level GPU can run it on maybe low quality. And obviously a higher end one can run it at medium or high or ultra quality. But it's going to get to that point. As everything gets more refined, everything gets more powerful, technology moves along, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Because it's essentially the next step up from all of this. And I'm just going to repeat myself one more time, but as they all get better at doing it and all as well, even entry-level stuff will be able to do it in at least a basic way. And that is very, very exciting to me, because the future is bright. The future is so bright, it's ray traced to the point where I gotta wear shades. But speaking of another grim, dark, drab, and dim future, got it right that time, nailed it. We have Silent Hill. Now, Silent Hill has been up and down and rumours galore the last couple of weeks and all too. I've talked about some of them, but not all of them. But unfortunately, if the official word is to go by, the Silent Hill rumours that have been going around have been completely squashed. Now, the main ones in question here are recently two rumours that were floating around were that two new games were in production. Not from Konami exactly, but that they licensed out the Silent Hill IP to Sony, and Sony was handling all of that stuff as well. So specifically, Sony were handling two games, allegedly at least anyway, and they were employing Project Siren, if that's Forbidden Siren's team and Gravity Rush and all that. And they were to work on one game, one of which was supposed to be a soft reboot, the other was supposed to be a Telltale / Until Dawn kind of game. And the other one was Sony going to be working with Kojima Productions, which, you know, Kojima and PT and Konami is kind of famous at this point, or infamous. But Konami have come out on public record and said that none of these ones are true at the moment. So all of it at the moment is just kind of squashed. But they're not putting the series to rest forever, or specifically they've said it, they're not closing the door on the series, which is good and bad. Now, of course, take all of this with a giant heaping bowl of salt, because companies can't be trusted. Might I remind you about the time where Nintendo, about 10 or 12, or maybe less than one day, I was going to say 10, 12, 16 hours, but basically one day before they announced the DSi, said that the DSi did not exist. So, yeah, there's all sorts of other companies out there too. Insomniac, for example, said that there was no truth to the rumor that they were going to be bought out by Sony and that they didn't want to be bought out by anyone. Then look, suddenly they're being bought out by Sony and saying, yes, it's the best thing ever, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, don't trust any of these companies. They're not out to announce stuff on other people's terms and other people's times. So, on top of all of that, there is one thing I can say about all of this. Two things, really, although it is one the same, just in different ways. So I'm glad that this isn't true for partial reasons. One, it's kind of sad that we're not getting new Silent Hill games yet. There is a potential in the future that Konami could make more Silent Hill games. They could be fantastic. They could source them out to a different studio or whatever and make a fantastic game. Now, because these are not in the current form with the whole Sony development, production and licensing and whatnot, it thankfully means no PS5 exclusivity, and possibly even more thankfully, no Kojima involved. Why, you might say? Because Kojima hasn't made a good game in 15 years. MGS3 was his last great game. MGS4 Ground Zeroes had the potential and makings of a good game, but everything other than that has been absolute trash. PT included. It was poor game design. The only thing I will say is people go, oh, that's Kojima, that's how he always does stuff. If that's how you always do things, then you're a bad writer, bad designer, bad director. If you have to excuse all of that just because if that's how you do things, that's a problem. Now, someone's going to bash it, say, I hate this, that, and the other, but I will say this, MGS1, MGS2, and MGS3 are basically masterpieces. Now, speaking of more downtrodden stuff, well, we've got some Epic Games stuff to talk about. Now, sadly, they've made a bit of a name for themselves over the last, well, a negative name for themselves over the last year or so. But anyway, so not content to just wage war on PC gaming and PC gamers via their assault on Steam, they're now taking the fight to other publishers as well by becoming a publisher themselves, not just of their own games. So what they've done is they have put out a licensing agreement, or they've said that there will be a publishing agreement in place that will be available for other developers that don't have a publishing partner. Now, of course, this is down to their own discretion. It doesn't just mean they're going to take everyone here as well. But strangely enough, they've put all of this stuff out there in the public, which is something that typically the developer, or well, typically other publishers won't do, because you know, if all the deals made are behind the scenes, then it's negotiating power between this, that, and the other. You can't say, oh, well, they're giving me a better deal than them, so, you know, I'm just going to go to them. But yeah, anyway, so what we're going to do before, we're going to list off all of the different key points that Epic have outlined for everyone else. Now, of course, before everyone automatically assumes I'm going to shit all over this, what I'm going to do for this is I am going to completely take Epic Games out of this and look at these numbers and statistics and facts and all objectively. So I'm not going to take into consideration that this is from Epic Games and this is the war that they've been waging on PC gaming and PC gamers. We're just going to look at the numbers, the facts, the digits, the percentages, etc., as if it was just any completely different any publisher offering this anyway. So the key points anyway, we start with developers retain full 100% control of their IP. So this is very, very important, and I think this is a very, very good thing. So most publishers don't allow this. So for example, if I went to Sony in order to get them to publish a game, they would basically own the IP. And that means, and even if I never work with Sony again after this game, it means that I can never do anything with that IP. I could create this immense character that everyone loves, but if Sony don't want me to make another game using it, I can't do it, despite it being my own creation and all that too. And so that's why I do think this is very good and this is very, very positive, that it essentially means that, let's just use Control as an example, because that's one of the more notable Epic Games ones. So Remedy, when they went to Control, they retained the IP, so basically down the line they can do whatever they want. So they can make a Control 2 or whatever it is. So that's a... Now, Remedy doesn't use this agreement. Their previous agreement with Epic Games for Control did not fall in under this contract. However, their two new games do, but we'll talk about that in a little bit down the line. So developers also retain 100% full creative control and freedom in game design, which is very, very good. I am going to break my little not talking about Epic Games thing now, but just to give you an idea, it just means that they won't have to make any China-friendly decisions for little Timmy Tencent over there and his little publishing investor that they have anyway. But no, this is good overall. It basically means that you can 100% have full creative control, and that, say, the publisher won't just step in and say, no, tone this down, no, you can't have this, no, you can't have that, which is something we've seen in the past, typically lately with Sony censoring certain PS4 games. So yeah, now granted, there are sometimes that they do need to be censored or not exist in those games at all, but that's a whole other story. The point is full creative control, which can backfire, but I'm going to go with probably 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100. It's probably the better thing. Epic Games, or in this case we'll just say the publisher, will cover up to 100% of development costs, including from salaries to QA, localization, marketing and publishing, etc., etc. Now this is great as well because typically, especially the last maybe console generation and a half, we've seen games basically have no QA whatsoever. They just release broken public betas to people, call it the full game, and that's basically it. So what they're doing now, and of course sometimes you do see it with games not getting translated into certain languages and all too, but in the meantime, what they're doing here is that they will cover all the, or up to 100% at least anyway, the salaries for everyone involved. They'll hire extra QA if needed, pay for all that, because that's usually outsourced to a separate studio. You've got separate QA studios as well. Localization, you're dealing with marketing firms in order for your game to be marketed properly on TV, YouTube, internet ads. Are there even physical magazines anymore? You get the idea. Press tours, media tours, events, stuff like that. And of course publishing, because naturally discs cost money, shipping costs money, boxes cost money, printing costs money, yada, yada, yada. Now the key wording I should say in this one is that they will cover up to 100% of these costs. So naturally there will be some things in there. Maybe they'll only cover like 50%. Maybe if they want to control something more or have some different control or a different part of a different part of the agreement elsewhere, maybe they will go up to 100%. Or maybe if they like the idea or something, or they see something in it, they will go with 100%. Now, Once these costs are recouped, devs will earn at least 50% of all of the profits. Now, again, this is back to what we have in the previous one when you think about it. So let's say Epic Games, they cover 100%, or the publisher covers 100% of all costs. And let's just say that's 10 million just for the sake of it. So basically, when that game comes out, the first 10 million that game makes, the developers see none of it. What will happen is the first 10 million that game makes will go back to the publisher to recoup those costs. Everything after that, they will see the developer will see at least 50%. Now, I have a feeling that based on the wording and all of some of these points with the up to 100% and they will earn at least 50%, I think if the publisher will give them 100% of everything, I think the devs will get 50% of all that back. However, I do think there might be special exceptions where if they give less than 100%, that maybe they only need a small bonus, a small benefit in order to finish the game or something like that, or make it to the scale and scope that they want. But I do think something like that might see 70-80% instead of the usual 50%, so that works as well. And of course, it could work in other ways too. They could have other stuff written into the contracts in order to get different percentages and whatnot too. So remember, objectively, taking Epic Games as the proprietor of this whole thing out, this is objectively a very favorable and very reasonable deal for developers. Many agree publicly when you look out there on Twitter about this, or even articles or videos or whatever. There are lots of developers that are speaking up and saying that this is very good, especially with the likes of the creative control and retaining the IP, and of course paying up to 100% of the development costs and everything involved as well. So objectively, that is a very, very good deal. And the funny thing about this, it's kind of a knock-on effect, if you will, that this has the PlayStation community up in arms, and it has their jimmies ever so rustled for several different reasons. And one of them is because for some absolute god-awful reason, this is usually propagated just by the Sony fanboy websites. You won't see this anywhere else. It's literally just on the Sony fanboy websites, that they were convinced that Sony were going to buy Remedy. There was no evidence for this whatsoever. The closest thing I could ever assume was the paid DLC timed exclusivity staggered launch. It's all over the place just for control. So there's the most wishy-washy thing ever. Anyone who actually believed that was an idiot, basically. But yeah, but it doesn't just stop there, because several studios have already signed up for this publishing deal with Epic. Remedy has signed up for 2 different games using this publishing deal. Also, the studio behind a previous, or well, I should say still PS4 exclusive, The Last Guardian, and that studio being Gen Design, have now signed up for Epic for their next game with this deal. So far, all games confirmed will be for multi-platform publishing. So, and that's basically another studio moving away from Sony in that regard. Now, I will say one negative thing which will bring Epic Games specifically back into this. Naturally, especially if they're going to fund up to 100% of the stuff, maybe in a lower percentage, maybe if they only fund 20, 50, 70%, maybe there'll be an invisible cutoff, or maybe it's an unwritten rule that it's wrote into this whatsoever. Maybe it won't be verbalized in any way, shape, or form. But I can, with almost 100%, 99.9% certainty, confirm that the PC versions of these games will be Epic Store exclusive. Now, depending on the percentage and depending on the agreements and all that we don't know about and the behind the scenes stuff, it would not surprise me if some, if not all of these games were Epic Game Store exclusive forever. Forever. So it also makes me wonder at the end of this little section if any of the previous publishers that took deals with these before that were less favorable, I wonder if they're going to end up a little bit salty with the likes of Deep Silver and 505 Games and whatnot, because their previous deals were probably not as good as this one. I know the Epic one, or the Control one with Remedy before this with 505 Games wasn't, but who knows with Deep Silver and Metro Exodus, or what else there is out there. I don't know. 2K and Obsidian, because of the whole, what's the name of that game? it'll come to me. Best game of last year. I can't remember it. Outer Worlds. Or even Gearbox with Borderlands 3. That could have. So yeah, there those deals are. We'll see how it goes moving forward. We don't know just yet. Now we'll quickly move on to some next gen talk here, because there's been a lot of it out there, regardless of different stuff and, you know, who is better, what's better. One thing is slightly faster, so it makes the system better overall. But we're going to try to remove all of that stuff out here. So we're going to go with a little bit of speculation based on hard numbers and hard facts at the moment. So with all the specs out there for both the Xbox and the PS5, we do know that from a sheer graphical grunt, CPU and GPU performance-wise, which is generally, of course, the main thing, we have the Xbox coming out as number one, aka being more powerful and probably a little bit more expensive. Now, we don't know the exact release date for these yet. Everyone reckons, pending no delays of course, that they will be out at the end of 2020. My money is on November, just because it seems to be the usual deal. But anyway, what we also don't know is the price of these boxes, and that's what we're going to talk about now. We're going to talk and speculate about next gen pricing. So with the stuff that's been out there at the moment that alleges that Sony, it's costing Sony $450 to get a single PS5 unit made, and of course the fact that they haven't even talked about the console too much, at least from a consumer focused point of view, let alone the price or anything like that, showing off any games, I feel that Sony would want to hit the under 500 mark. Now, that is not including 499, because that's bullshit, and someone's going to say 498.99. No, get out of here. So I think they want to be noticeably under the 500 mark. I think they might aim for 450, because again, when you look at it, these companies, these console makers, these manufacturers, they're not banking on making profit on all this hardware, software licensing and subscription services, as well as microtransactions depending on the company and game, is where they really make all their money. So it would not surprise me if Sony were to metaphorically break even. I say metaphorically simply because there's all sorts of extra stuff included. Packaging, shipping, etc. Stuff like that is factored in. But it wouldn't surprise me if they broke even on just the base hardware alone. And of course there's rumors out there, or speculation at least anyway, that they're specifically waiting on Microsoft to talk about their price before announcing a price. Now, when it comes to Microsoft and the Xbox, given the fact that the hardware in there is objectively better and it is probably going to be more expensive because of it, it should in theory cost more based on those parts. But I think we're going to have a little bit of a difference. Microsoft were already caught with their pants down at the start of the 8th generation when the Xbox One launched at €100 more expensive than the PlayStation 4, and it had the Kinect that nobody wanted bundled in there as a forced thing, at the start at least anyway. And of course, it was the less capable machine. Now, what I think is going to happen, I expect Microsoft to go hard, and I expect them to go for $399, maybe $429, just to get as many boxes into homes as quick as possible. People will see, oh, more expensive console, or sorry, less expensive console, more powerful console. I'm not going to get into the whole exclusives argument now, because that's for a different video, or well, it's been in many of them at this point. But Microsoft have so much money that they can afford to eat all these big losses, at least at first, for the first couple of refreshes or restocks or cycles, whatever you want to call it, of this hardware. And then they want to try and recoup it with stuff like their games licensing, their digital sales, their subscriptions, their microtransactions, Game Pass, Xbox Live, Game Pass Ultimate, stuff like that. It would not surprise me at all if Microsoft went and took a huge hit on the hardware just to beat this out. So my predictions right now, Sony maybe 429 to 450. 450 is my real guess. And Microsoft 399, possibly 429, because they want to go hard and get it done right this generation after being fucking ruffle stomped the entire last one. Now that all this week's stuff is over and done with, we have, of course, possibly the most interesting and most important version of our best segment of all time. We have Q, what is up, what's going down, what's going on, what's the 411, what are you doing, what are you playing? Well, the reason why this is the more interesting and important one is for two reasons. Reason the first, we have, of course, the lockdown, the coronavirus. I have even more time to play all this stuff, both new and old, and even somewhere in between, backlog, retro, or fairly new. And of course, we are in, what is it? We're at the end of March. And of course, March and April this year is pretty stacked for new games, for big games as well, important ones. Like Doom Eternal, which I was playing pretty hardcore over the weekend that it launched. I can't remember if I had told everyone that I finished it by the time I made the previous one episode of this last weekend, but even if I did, or even if I didn't mention it, well, I finished it. Went back and did some extra little stuff. The game is so good. I didn't 100% it just yet, but I was getting there anyway. I decided I'd take a little break from it, and then I'll go back, get all the rest of the stuff. I'm leaving a few collectibles just for the end right now, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until the DLC comes out, or right before it comes out. Going to go back, find these collectibles. That'll get me into the swing of it, get my skills all tuned up, refined, and sharpened, and honed, and then I'll be able to jump right in, balls deep, fist first into the DLC, because, well, it's going to be good this time. It's single-player DLC all this time, which is good. And of course, daily Animal Crossing and chill, as I like to call it. Or, well, do I like to call it that? But we'll call it that anyway. So yes, daily Animal Crossing. It's great, nice distraction, nice time killer, nice chill, relaxed vibe. And it's fun to play. I like Animal Crossing games, so that's good. Doing that on the daily, so of course, we'll unlock all our stuff as much as possible. Currently waiting on what will happen tomorrow. Residential services will be closed. They're actually going to move up to their own building, and I have my next upgrade coming. It'll be the third house upgrade. It'll be the one where they add in the back room, and it's going to be 348,000 bells. So, yeah. Speaking of which, I found a really nice way to get bells today. No, not the tarantula trick, because that would just drive me nuts. It'd make me pull my hair out. But, yeah, that's... It's going to be good. It's going to be good. I'm really enjoying it. In fact, we myself and a couple of other people, we bullied, if you will, a person into buying a Switch, and she's getting Animal Crossing, as well as some other stuff too. But Animal Crossing to play with us is the big important thing as well. And of course, what have I been doing the last few days? But I've also been going hard with Borderlands 3. I started it on Wednesday. Here we are on the Sunday, and I'm 20-something hours into it. Last time I checked, I was 21 hours into it. I played it for about 3 or 4 more hours after that, so I'm probably, let's just call it 24, 25 hours into it. And it's good. It's good. It's good. It's more Borderlands that you know and love. It's not as good as Borderlands 2, and I know maybe it's just a little bit of nostalgia for me, but the Borderlands 2 was that magic. It had that. I completely dismissed Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2 up until... I'm not going to tell the Destiny story. I've told it so many times. But it had that magic, that spark that captivated me into the series and just drew me in and made me fall in love with it. I can never recapture that, so Borderlands 3 is missing that. So maybe it's a little bit of nostalgia goggles and, well, we can't call these rose-tinted glasses, but you get the idea anyway. So on top of all of that, we do have Resident Evil 3 Remake coming later this week. I believe it's out on the Friday. Hopefully Capcom do a midnight launch. But yeah, that's going to have me keep going. That's going to have me basically hard over the weekend, if you will. So I'll be doing that. I'll be playing all the extra stuff, the different modes, if there is any. Going back, doing a couple of other stuff. But I won't be playing that shitty online mode, I tell you that much. And then, of course... I shouldn't really mention this because it's 2 or 3 weeks away at this point, but I'm going to mention it just because Final Fantasy VII Remake I might have sometime this week, several weeks early. Woo lad, imagine that. And the reason I say that is, like I mentioned earlier, I got a notification earlier this week from Square Enix that my game was ready to be shipped, and was being shipped, I should say. And the last time I got that was with Kingdom Hearts 3, and I got that game from the Square Enix store. Like, I bought Final Fantasy VII Remake. I got Kingdom Hearts 3 before launch. So I'm hoping Final Fantasy VII Remake, Soldier First Class Edition, might come just a smidgen early. Especially because that's out on the 10th, and so far our lockdown is currently running till the 14th. It could change and that could get worse, but I would love maybe another week or two to play that game. Just in peace, solitude, and silence. Or, you know, if it arrives really, really early, and then I can just factor it in right now. But yeah, I can't wait. So the big thing as well is, just before we end out that one, how has everyone else been managed in the lockdown? From your own mental sanity, your mental sanity, as well as, you know, if you're cracking up, if you've got cabin fever, if you're stir crazy, or if you've just been relishing it and loving it like myself, who hates dealing with people in the outside world as it is, and who just sits here with even more time to play all the stuff that he knows and loves. Anyway, having said all that, let me know all of this good stuff relating to any of these topics that we talked about here today. Positive, negative, questions, queries, comments, butthurt, salt, whatever it is, agreement, disagreement, any of that stuff. As well as your whole little update on what's going on with you and the lockdown stuff, how you handling it. Let me know all that good stuff in the comments section below. Hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video, and while you're at it, why not head on over and hit the subscribe button and even ring the little notification bell. Granted, getting a notification from YouTube in current year about a new video upload or a live stream or whatever can be a whole other story. But hey, at least you can say you tried to be one of those people that gets one of these glorious little notifications every weekend when we put up one of these beautiful little high production, amazing looking episodes of our Quack experimental podcast. In the meantime, I want to thank everyone for watching, and remember, winners don't play switch ports.